Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
So, HDMI. I walk into the average store and go to the electronics department, unless the whole store is electronics, and there seems to be like 1,000 of them, and they range in price, like from super cheap to super expensive. How do I know which HDMI cable to get?
You go and you say, I want the most expensive HDMI cable ever. It needs to be gold-plated, oxygen-free, snag-free, and it needs to support 400 gigabits.
Okay, so which ones do that?
No, I'm kidding. That's the monster branding hype. That's the all of it. It is HDMI is a digital signal. So, for the most part, if the signal is being passed, it is the same quality no matter which cable you're using.
Okay, so to say that again, are you suggesting that most HDMI cables are the same?
Yes.
Okay.
You can get a defective one. I mean, if you buy a bunch of $1 HDMI cables, you're going to have some that don't work.
Now, how do you know when your HDMI cable is a defective one or it's going out, it's dying?
9 times out of 10, if your HDMI cable doesn't work, you're going to get these funny little pink dots all over the screen if it's only slightly not working.
Well, what if you're watching the funny pink dot show? That's like on Adult Swim now. It's like, I can't. It's like right after Robot Chicken. I can't get enough of it. How do you know when it's broken then?
You change the channel, and the weather channel will probably still have the pink dots.
Okay, so pink dots, a good sign that your HDMI cable is failing.
Yes. The other thing that happens with a bad HDMI cable is that you'll get intermittent errors when playing DVDs. It's kind of stupid. It will usually flash on the screen HDCP error. And it'll usually also display that on the front of your DVD player or Blu-ray player. It won't always. But if you've got intermittent problems with your HDMI cable, you'll get HDCP errors. And HDCP is the copy protection. And so that will go away. Most HDMI cables, there is no difference. And you'll see these ones that say, oh, it's HDMI 1.0 compatible, 1.1, 1.2. We're now on 1.4a.
And those version numbers are important?
Those version numbers are not actually important for the cable. The cable was designed to be the same across all of those versions.
Like USB?
Like USB. USB 1 cables and USB 2 cables are supposed to be interchangeable. I've had a couple of times where I've had a USB 1 cable that wouldn't actually carry the bandwidth of a USB 3 device. But for the most part, that's probably because the cable is old, because it was manufactured for USB 1.
Right.
And HDMI will do the same thing. These don't last forever, especially if you plug them in and unplug them. The gold plating on HDMI is only really good as it is less likely to get some oxidization on it if you're plugging it in or unplugging it a whole lot, or if you get them wet. I don't know why you're getting your HDMI cable wet.
If you live in a moisture environment, I mean, there is a higher chance of mold and oxidation.
I just moved to Seattle, but I didn't worry that my HDMI cables were going to rust. It could happen.
Fair enough. Now, what about the snag-free? I mean, that seems to be valuable.
That can be valuable, and I get a bunch of cables from Amazon, and I may put the link in, but that are $6 HDMI cables. They're 10 feet long, and they've got this nice black mesh along the outside to keep them from snagging, and they work perfectly. They are just as good as any other cable or the monster cable.
Well, wouldn't they also the thicker coating or the hard candy shell? Wouldn't that also decrease any kind of I guess electrical interference?
It's not the interference that you have to worry about. The thicker casing just prevents you from knotting it or snapping it. There are a whole bunch of lots of little wires, because every one of the pins that you can see on the HDMI cable is a wire on the inside. So if you go like this, you will wear those wires out. And a thicker coating doesn't really protect from interference. It protects from snapping or tangling those wires on the inside.
And if any of those wires are not functional,
then nothing works.
Okay, so
or kind of most things. There is a pin for audio. There is a pin for part of the red signal. Those kinds of things. So you could in fact have a cable that the audio didn't pass because somebody had snagged it enough that the insides didn't work.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's essentially a DVI cable in conjunction with audio cabling, correct?
Yeah,
I mean, for the most part, I mean,
HDMI is basically a repackage of the DVI form factor from the old video monitors. And we'll probably talk about that in the next video about how DVI and HDMI are related.
Okay.
Okay?